A dramatic announcement after 11 months of war. The Security Cabinet has officially added the return of residents to their homes on the Lebanese border as a new goal of the war in Gaza. It's also authorized steps to achieve this objective. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
Overnight, the Security Cabinet voted to update the official goals for the ongoing war with Hamas in Gaza to include the objective of the safe return of the residents of the north to their homes and Israeli action to achieve that goal. The motion comes more than 11 months after tens of thousands of northern residents were displaced from their homes after Hezbollah began attacking northern Israel in early October on a near daily basis. Israel has increasingly threatened to launch a major operation to push back Hezbollah from the border, and the change to the stated war goals comes as U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein visits Israel in his latest attempt to reach a diplomatic solution and avoid further escalation. Until now, the official war goals have been the elimination of Hamas's military and governing capabilities, the return of all the hostages, and ensuring that Gaza no longer poses a threat to Israel. Defense Minister Gallant expressed the view that only Israeli military action against Hezbollah in Lebanon will enable Israeli civilians to return to their homes on the northern border, evacuated since the start of the war in Gaza. Gallant told U.S. Envoy Hochstein the possibility of a diplomatic agreement to end the cross-border fighting is running out as Hezbollah continues to tie itself to Hamas and refuses to end the conflict. Gallant went on to tell Hochstein the only way left to ensure the return of Israel's northern communities to their homes will be via military action. Prime Minister Netanyahu told Hochstein in their meeting that it would not be possible for Israel to return its 60,000 evacuated residents to their homes in the north without a fundamental change in the security situation there. As the meeting was underway, Hezbollah rockets and drones continued to pound northern Israel, and the Air Force struck numerous Hezbollah launchers and infrastructure in South Lebanon.
And mysterious explosions have been reported in the center of Beirut. According to reports out of Lebanon, communications equipment used by Hezbollah terrorists were detonated simultaneously from a remote location. There are reports of numerous casualties. And joining us now with more on the ongoing war and the security situation in the north is Lieutenant Colonel in the Reserve Sarit Zehavi, founder and president of ALMA, specializing in Israel's security challenges on the northern border. Sarit, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So after nearly a year returning the residents of northern Israel to their homes, 60,000 are still displaced and the rest live under a constant rock and fire. Returning them now is an official war goal. So what will it take to achieve this goal, and why make it a goal now?
Why now? You should ask the government. I think it should have happened long ago. I think that in order to bring the people back, they should see achievements in elimination, the capabilities of Hezbollah to massacre, to launch anti-tank rockets. We should see deployment of the IDF on the borderline in a way that will prevent infiltration of terrorists in massive amounts. We should see active and passive defense side by side with the offense that was just decided upon. All of that together, and of course with a lot of incitement to the people that are living here, may help us to bring the people back home.
Now, diplomatic efforts are still underway to achieve a solution in the north, though we have seen increased rhetoric from leaders across the political spectrum that a war is forthcoming. Can Israel afford to leave Hezbollah on its border? I mean, after all, Israel did have a diplomatic agreement with Hamas as well on October 6th.
No, I want to say something about the difference. The arrangement that existed in Lebanon was supposed to create a different reality that Hezbollah is not there. This was the meaning of the arrangement from 2006. Of course, it was never implemented from day one. So any talkings of diplomatic arrangement should deal with the disarming of Hezbollah in South Lebanon, at least in South Lebanon. Of course, this was never the case in Gaza. In Gaza, it was just ceasefire without talking of any disarmament of Hamas, which is a problem. The problem in the north is that the arrangement that was created didn't include an effective monitoring mechanism. Neither UNIFIL nor the Lebanese army were willing to clash with Hezbollah. And this meant that Hezbollah could do whatever it wants in South Lebanon and rearm right after the war in 2006.
So do you believe that war with Hezbollah is inevitable, if not now, then in the near future?
We are already at war with Hezbollah. Since October 8th, there is fire to the north every day. And the only question now is how do we stop that? And at the same time, how do we bring, as you said, how do we bring security and bring the people back home? But war, it's not a choice whether to go to war. We are already at war that we didn't choose and we didn't initiate.
And expanding the war, if you will, is that something that Israel, that the home front is prepared for?
The home front is never prepared enough, I'll put it this way. I don't know what exactly measures of offensive the government and the IDF will decide to do. There is a wide spectrum of things that could be done that were not done until today. It may bring to more escalation, as you said, with regard to the home front of Israel, but at the same time, if we will see achievements, and I believe we will see achievements with the elimination of capabilities of Hezbollah, not even all capabilities, this could be very helpful in bringing the people back home. It's not going to be easy. We are in a campaign that was forced on us. We didn't want that. But it is clear to all of us today that the fact that the northern part of Israel is not part of Israel anymore is a strategic problem, and Israel cannot continue in this situation.
And there are many critics saying that if Israel shifts its focus to the north before a hostages deal, that any hope of their return will be diminished. I mean, what is your take on this?
I think on the contrary. I think we pretty much lost many of the leverage of pressure on Hamas during the time. And maybe if we are being creative, if we are threatening Hezbollah, indirectly it could bring a pressure to Hamas as well to release the hostages, because they will not have the back of Hezbollah anymore. Hezbollah will be busy with his own campaign and will be deeply threatened by the IDF as well. So I think on the contrary, this is another means to pressure Hamas, and of course there should be more.
Absolutely. Well, a very tense situation on the northern border. Sarit Zehavi, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.
Is a political shakeup in the works? Speculations are running wild once again that Prime Minister Netanyahu is set to fire Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. It's no secret the two have been at odds in recent months over the handling of the ongoing war. All the details in the following report. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly considering firing Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and replacing him with New Hope National Right Party leader Gideon Sa'ar. The controversial move would see the current coalition expand by 4 seats and see Sa'ar take over as either the defense minister or foreign minister with some sort of rotation with current foreign minister Israel Katz. Part of the agreement would reportedly include Sa'ar's support for a new draft bill that is acceptable to ultra-Orthodox coalition partners and ensures the coalition's survival. Gallant has publicly expressed opposition to any bill that does not ensure more ultra-Orthodox are drafted to meet the needs of the IDF. Other analysts have speculated the timing may have to do with tensions in the north, as Israel considers an operation against Hezbollah. Gallant had been opposed to any operation before reaching a ceasefire deal for the hostages, while Sa'ar has indicated Israel must act immediately. With speculation of the political shakeup, the Hostages and Family Forum called on Sa'ar not to abandon the hostages and said his appointment would be a clear and unequivocal admission by the Prime Minister that he has decided to finally abandon the hostages. Yet rumors of Netanyahu's desire to dismiss Gallant have been circulating for months over the two's conflicting views on numerous issues. However, so far, despite the speculation, both the Prime Minister's office and Gideon Sa'ar have denied any such move. And joining us now with more on the political and social implications of firing Defense Minister Yoav Gallant is Dr. Ellie Cmon, a senior researcher at the International Institution for Counterterrorism. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So the headlines say that Netanyahu is considering firing Gallant over, among other things, differences about when and how to attack Hezbollah and Lebanon. What could the impact be of making such a move 11 months into a war, both political and security-wise?
First of all, it is clear that the real goal of Prime Minister Netanyahu is to pass the law of the conscription of the yeshiva students and pupils, and not the Lebanon issue. We know that Gallant, from the beginning, was very aggressive and assertive about the need to attack Hezbollah in Lebanon, and even now, the last weeks, he speaks about quite openly. Clearly, this is a madness, I would say, really, to change the Minister of Defense in such critical moment. On the one hand, there is no end to the operation in Gaza. We still have a lot of troops there. We don't have a solution for the liberation of the hostages, and we have on our really very short time the possibility of a war not only with Lebanon, but with all the fronts, including Syria, including the West Bank, and possibly even Iran. And now, clearly, this is a problem that was highlighted this morning or 2-3 hours ago, when there was a publication of information that Hezbollah is responsible for trying to assassinate one of the highest level officials of our defense ministry. And this produces a change in the decision of the Prime Minister on the issue of replacing Gallant, and now there is discussion what to do vis-a-vis Hezbollah and Lebanon. And this is a very critical moment, so I don't understand how several hours ago they tried to decide the change of leadership at the Ministry of Defense.
So, despite the denials, it's understood that Netanyahu is in some sort of negotiations with Gideon Sa'ar. Why him? And, would he be qualified to be the defense minister?
I'm sure that he could be a good Minister of Defense after 6 months of learning how to lead such a huge organization, biggest organization, which includes not only the Minister of Defense, but also a great part of the army. But he doesn't have time. We are in the middle of the war. As I said, we are one moment, perhaps, before a huge operation or even full war in Lebanon and possibly Syria, Iraq. And we have the Houthis on our backs and Iran. So how exactly Mr. Saab, with all his qualities and intellectual capabilities, could change the situation and learn how to lead such an organization and such a critical moment in its history, not only the department, but of the country itself.
Some are arguing that, there are many rifts between Netanyahu and Gallant. Perhaps it is better to bring in someone who sees more eye to eye with the Prime Minister. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that this could, in some way, perhaps strengthen the coalition? It would widen the government, widen the coalition? Or do you see it leading to additional challenges?
No, I don't think that it changes this coalition. It keeps it going because the Haredim parties will remain in the coalition and the government will not be dissolved. This is the main issue at stake. But again, even if we want to improve the relationship between the Prime Minister and his Minister of Defense, this is not the way to do it. I think they should stay for several hours and decide what to do, because we know there are conflicts of decision-making, for instance, about the Philadelphia road, because Gallant, like most of the heads of the armies, think that this is not a sine qua non solution for our continuing control of Gaza. And Prime Minister Netanyahu has decided that this is the most important issue, or the issue of the liberation of the hostages, which we cannot declare full victory in Gaza and have on our hands on practically not only the government but our people to have the blood of so many hostages and women and men.
Well, a very complex political situation, which of course we will continue to follow. Ellie, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you.
And it's day 347 of the war in Gaza. After the defeat of Hamas's Rafah battalions, the IDF is focusing attention in central and northern Gaza as remaining Hamas terror cells attempt to confront Israeli forces. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
A reserve soldier from the Givati brigade was severely wounded in a clash with Hamas gunmen in southern Gaza. The IDF continues to operate in the south, but after the defeat of the Rafah brigades and the demolition of many terror tunnels, the IDF focus is moving to confront remaining terror cells in central and northern Gaza. For a second time since the start of the war, the 5th Brigade has returned to maneuver in central Gaza. The same reserve forces fought in the Gaza Strip for many months in the area of Beit Hanun and the central corridor of Gaza Strip, after completing the task of protecting the settlements and kibbutzim in the Gaza envelope in the first days of the fighting. Several terrorists were killed in airstrikes in the northern Gaza Strip. The IDF said it has indications that Hamas gunmen are regrouping quickly, and the army is working to stamp out any resurgence. The IDF targeted a school-turned-shelter being used as Hamas command center for a second time in 2 days. The army says Hamas is hiding behind civilians sheltering from the war. A senior Hamas official rejected Israeli claims that Hamas is defeated as a military formation. He claimed the group was far from depleted, but provided no evidence that the Hamas command and control still exists in the Gaza Strip.
And opposition leader Yair Lapid from Washington, D.C. is calling for a hostages deal, saying he would offer a political safety net to Prime Minister Netanyahu to achieve this aim. More on his visit from ILTV's Devo Klein.
Opposition leader Yair Lapid from Washington is calling for a hostage deal as soon as possible. Lapid met with senior U.S. officials at the State Department on Monday and had this to say after the meetings.
Thank you for being here. I just finished a long meeting with Secretary Blinken. Before that, I met with the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, discussing the situation back home in Israel and the relations with the United States, and most importantly, the hostage deal that needs to be taken. Israel needs the hostage deal and the end of the war, and no political process or political turbulence should affect the hostage deal. We have to bring them back home.
Lapid said he believed Hamas was the largest obstacle to the deal, not the current government, but called on Netanyahu to do more to bring them back home, and said he would offer any political safety net in order to achieve a deal.
I believe that any political interests should be set aside for this. This is way more important. Israel as a nation will not heal unless we will bring them back home. This is essential to our existence. So yes, I will give him any necessary safety net in order to make the deal.
And with regards to Hezbollah, Lapid had this to say.
And we're trying our best now, along with our American friends, to figure out a way to solve the conflict up north in the northern part of Israel without a full-scale war. And hopefully this will work. If not, we will have to act against Hezbollah.
Lapid also commented on the reports that Prime Minister Netanyahu will fire Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and said he hoped this would not be the case, adding that Gallant was doing a good job under terrible circumstances.
And with the ongoing war against Hamas placing significant strain on Israel's economy, Israeli annual inflation has now accelerated to 3.6%. Let's go to ILTV's Ariella Lachiani, who has more. Ariella?
Yes, thank you, Ladar. So Israeli inflation is higher in August than forecast, with the annual inflation accelerating to 3.6%, up from the 3.2% in July. Now, Finance Minister Smotrich has recently presented plans for Israel's national budget for 2025, which include reducing expenses while still supporting, of course, the ongoing war effort. Now, with the total war cost estimated at around 200 to 250 billion shekels, the budget aims to balance fiscal responsibility with funding the war for as long as needed. Now, though the current inflation of 3.6% is viewed as temporary and just a result of the war, the budget aims for a target deficit of up to 4% of GDP for 2025, down from the 6.6% forecast for 2024. Now, this requires around 35 billion shekels in spending adjustments adjustments, including freezing tax rates, wages and benefits, and it also allows room for improving the high-tech sector as well as the public efficiency sector. Now, all of this, of course, points to great financial strain on the country. However, Israel's pre-war economic performance, along with their low debt-to-GDP ratio, provides much more room for navigating this crisis.
All right, thank you, Ariella. And as we approach the first anniversary of the October 7th massacre, southern Israel is experiencing a rise in war-related tourism from Israelis and also from foreign visitors wanting to personally visit the sites of the massacres. More from ILTV's Devo Klein.
The October 7th attack was Israel's deadliest day and the worst killing of Jews since the Holocaust. The worst massacre sites have been drawing an increasing number of visitors. At the Nova Music Festival Memorial, the location of a rave party where Hamas killed 364 and kidnapped 44 partygoers and staff, dozens of visitors walked among photos of victims while buses from different tour operators drove in and out.
Prior trips, although there were some family events, I felt at the time it was too raw to be able to go see something like this. But on this trip, we decided that we wanted to do some volunteering, which we actually did on the last trip, and also we intentionally said we wanted to come down to particularly to the Nova Festival and to see what had happened in the South.
Many foreign tourists coming to Israel are here to show support for Israel in its time of war. Many have added Nova and other sites to their tour itineraries as a way to honor the victims.
Well, it's important to visit because the same reason it was important to go to Auschwitz and the same reason it was important to go to the 9/11 Memorial Museum and pay my respects to the people who lost their lives tragically and without reason, just snuffed out, true lives just snuffed out. But the difference here is that every single one of these people are my family, and I need to know what happened to them.
Nearby, a pile of burnt cars from the attack was made into an official memorial, with benches and cooling fans for people to observe the assembled wreckage.
Just look around you and you can see how many vehicles and minibuses and buses are here of different groups that are coming to visit. And this is a period where the entry to Israel is very, very restricted. When there were more flights reaching Israel, you would have quite a few buses parked here and a lot of groups, also local groups, Israeli military forces, civilian forces, companies, and so on. This place is gradually attracting more and more visitors.
Sagot Winery, where passion meets tradition. Nestled in the heart of Binyamin, our vineyards yield exquisite wines crafted with generations of expertise.
And now, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly cloudy skies are expected tonight around the country as temperatures should reach lows of around 21 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, partly cloudy skies are expected, and while weather approaches, the heat will stay as temperatures should reach highs of 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, ILTV.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Lt Col Svei. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.